Now I'm going to talk about Freemasonic symbology, and I want people to understand that Freemasonry in and of itself is not an evil ideology. Again, it is an occult system of knowledge that can be used for good, or it can be used for ill or manipulation, depending on who is wielding that knowledge. So this is the Freemasonic compasses and square with the letter G in the middle as depicted in American Freemasonry. The compasses represent higher consciousness, and they represent morality, proper moral action. The square represents base consciousness, which must be ruled by our compassion and must be ruled by our moral uprightness. The square is base consciousness. It can be seen as the reptile brain. If you look at these three components as the three complexes of the brain, okay, you have the R complex being the square. You have the neocortex with its two hemispheres being the compasses, and you have the midbrain, that which gives birth to the conscience, care, as the G in the middle of the two. It represents the goddess, the grand architect of the universe, which is care. Okay, that's what creates our experience, what we care about. And if we get into touch with conscience, it can give birth to proper moral action. But we can only do that by getting in touch with the grand architect of the universe, the God principle, the sacred within us. And that is how to get off of the square and onto the compass. See, the square traces a shape that is a square with 90-degree angles, not found in nature, rough edges. The circle traces the symbol of perfection in ancient systems of occult knowledge. The circle is perfect. It is unbroken. It is a symbol of divinity. It can never be nailed down with perfection because it is based upon pi, a figure that is a divine principle that can never be calculated with absolute certainty. So the object is to circle the square and have our compassion and our higher consciousness rule over our lower instincts and our animal instincts. And we do that through getting in touch with the care principle, the generative principle, the G, which is the grand architect of the universe, care, conscience. So it's about moral uprightness, and it can be equally seen by dark builders, by dark masons, to represent quite an opposite. This is how symbolism is in the eye of the beholder, and how the wielder of this symbol determines what it's really being used for based on their level of consciousness. So a dark mason, a rogue mason, a dark builder, so to speak, could see the symbol this way. Man is ignorant. He exists in base consciousness. And I, as one who has perfected myself, have the divine right to rule over the base man, the square, he who is on the square. So it's two different interpretations of the same symbol. One seen in a positive connotation and one seen in a manipulative, negative connotation, depending on the eye of the beholder, of the wielder of the symbol. Here's how this has been used in popular culture. In some of these examples, it's subversive. In some, it could be seen as an uplifting symbol. But generally in education, you'll see the square used in the three symbols and the color blue for the square representing the blue lodges. And this is base consciousness. This is the base of the pyramid of this particular secret society network, the hierarchical pyramid-like structure. And you're seeing the pyramid encoded here, but through the square. And the three base levels of Freemasonry, the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason, being the three introductory or initiatory degrees of what is known as the Blue Lodge in American Freemasonry. And this is as far as many go. and it is often the degrees that are said to keep knowledge of higher levels suppressed for those really in the know of the order do not wish for those people to receive the knowledge because they have been gauged as really still being in base consciousness. And you're seeing that depicted in educational logos there. This Columbia University and that the University of Pennsylvania's shield. Here we see the compasses tracing the semicircle on the patch for the Columbia Space Shuttle mission. And one of my favorites encoding the compass and square of Freemasonry is the game of baseball, a game I've personally resonated with. But we see the compasses encoded by the foul lines here, okay, that make up first and third base. The bases form the square for the individuals in base consciousness, on the square, the basemen. Okay, they're the basemen. And the middle here, the mound of creation, the primordial mound, is the limbic brain, the generative principle, the feminine aspect that throws the feminine seed into play. The intuitive principle of the limbic brain, giving information to us, and it is up to us here at the place where the feminine instinct is being given to make contact with it with the male principle. Or in other words, to put it into action with the phallic symbol. You're uniting the male, the bat, and the female, the ball, and putting the feminine aspect of truth into play in the field of consciousness to get it past the base men and to make the journey from base consciousness to higher consciousness to get home. The game of baseball is completely Masonically designed. I don't see that as a negative influence. I'm just pointing out an example of how that symbology is used in the game of baseball. I personally look at that as a positive understanding. The pitcher being the feminine aspect, care, the grand architect of the game. So in these examples, I do see it as subversive. In this one, of course, the compass is used here on this logo from NASA, but we know what happened with that mission. So could be a illusion that dark Masonic elements may have been in control of that particular sacrifice. Who knows? The game of baseball, clearly Masonically designed. I look at that as a positive connotation of the symbolism. In a very negative connotation of the symbolism, we see how the Freemasonic network is used all throughout the United States in control agencies, in agencies of male dominator control, in this example being police. And these examples are certainly Blue Lodge degrees, Blue Lodge orders, lower orders of Masonry, and I would look at the individuals belonging to these groups and other fraternal orders of police as being on the square. And if anybody thinks that when someone tells you in Freemasonic parlance that you're on the square, that they're paying you a compliment, you have no idea what the term means, because you've just been insulted by being told that you're on the square. It's not a symbol of being fair, of fairness and uprightness. It is the square in Freemasonry is most certainly a symbol of base consciousness, of not understanding the true self. And when someone is told that they're on the square in Freemasonry, it is essentially an insult. And we see that this network of secret societies is actually at work in these controlling orders of police. And I look at that as a very subversive symbol, because these fraternal orders have more allegiance to the secret oaths than they've sworn than to actually do the job to uphold the Constitution and to protect the public. And it can be really used as a means of one hand washes the other. I'll do a favor for you if you look the other way in this instance, or do what I tell you to do here. And it's really a way that freedom can be subverted through this hierarchical order, particularly when it is used in conjunction with controlling bodies like the police. So this is an extremely important symbol that's going to carry over into what we talk about next. This is the first degree Masonic tracing board, and I'm going to cover this from two angles, a positive connotation and a negative connotation. So here we see, first, there are directions. This is a map. You see north, south, east, and west. So we are standing at the west, looking east. The west is down here, the east is up here. We see that there is a checkered floor of black and white squares representing base consciousness. This is the checkered life of a man who is not born in consciousness. He does not know light from dark. He is a wanderer, a pawn in the game, so to speak. One who can be positioned. However, his master may wish him positioned, the chess master of the game, who sees the whole board from above, from a higher level of consciousness, and takes the pieces and positions them as he will. This is one who is in duality. Here's the pillars, the dual pillars. This is the pillar of Joachim. It is a masculine pillar, represented as a Doric column. And you have the sun ruling that pillar. It's the pillar of strength, the S representing strength. The feminine side of the pillar is the pillar of Boaz. The B at the bottom stands for beauty. It is a Corinthian pillar, a latter ornate feminine pillar. And the moon sits above that pillar. This is the pillars that represent the masculine and feminine aspects of human consciousness. And it is how we enter the world with these two principles kind of in opposition, and it's our goal to understand them and to unite them as one. To use our willpower. This is the pillar of will or wisdom, which the W stands for. It is Jacob's ladder. Jacob, as described in the story of Genesis, goes to a higher level of consciousness. He experiences God consciousness. He comes back down to the earth and understands that really the journey of life is to get back to that level of pure awareness and pure consciousness. And that is the end of the journey, kind of. It's like you enter in this dual state, seeing things as separate, and then the object is to make it through the realm of duality, the checkerboard floor, and unite the two principles as one, and then you're born into the stars, into the light of conscience and consciousness. So that's the journey up Jacob's ladder. And we see here in the background the stones known as the ashlars, the rough ashlar representing the soul in need of work, and the perfect ashlar representing the state of perfection to which we seek to attain. The initiates are going up the ladder in the 3 basic degrees of masonry. Entered apprentice, who is still on the floor. The fellowcraft, who is in the middle, who has not received the key, which is tied here to the ladder, but he's at the G, where conscience is beginning to be born, the care principle. And the master mason, who gets the key to unlock the star gate, the sun, so to speak, is bringing himself to a place of balance and understanding and enlightenment. So it's a powerful and positive connotation. It could also be used to represent the left brain and the right brain, the male and female yang and yin energies, and the object is to unify them in the middle to awaken the prefrontal cortex and the pineal gland, to awaken our star gate. Okay, and that's in the direction of the east. the direction of the light, the rising sun, is in the east. We don't want to be headed west. That's the direction of base consciousness, and darkness, the setting sun. The sun sets in the west, of course. So powerful symbology there, but it unravels even more when we consider this tracing board on its side, as I will show you. Again, here we're seeing the three lights in the heavens, the lights of Freemasonry, the lights of the religions, the sun, the moon, and the all-seeing eye, the stars and planets. Again, we saw the religions of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism representative of these principles, and how they correlate to the three pillars of Freemasonry and global consciousness. Now, looking at the Freemasonic tracing board on its side opens up a whole nother level of what this symbolically represents. So again, we're given directions. Here is the west, here is the east, this is the south, and this is the north. Understanding what we now understand about astrotheology, we can now understand what this whole scene really depicts. It depicts the spiritual journey of man out of the prison vibration that is on the earth, identification with the physical world of matter. This is the earth. It's black and white, the colors of a prisoner, okay? The prison planet, so to speak. And these are the lines of latitude and longitude of the earth. This is the Earth's equator, right here, the middle pillar. This is the Tropic of Cancer. This is the Tropic of Capricorn. In the southern hemisphere, the Tropic of Cancer in the northern hemisphere. Here we see the light of Freemasonry, the sun in the east, away from the earth. And this is the sun at the summer solstice. This is the sun at the winter solstice, when the northern hemisphere is in darkness, depicted as the moon there. We're not in enlightenment, right? This is the pillar of mercy, because when the sun is up there, the sun favors the northern hemisphere, shows mercy upon the northern hemisphere. Boaz is considered the pillar of severity, because the sun does not favor the northern hemisphere when it is at the pillar of Boaz, or the Tropic of Capricorn. And this is the equator. This would be balance, or the equinoxes, the all-seeing eye, is the place that opens up when the hemispheres of the brain come into a perfect state of balance. So this is the journey of the initiate. From darkness, starting here on the earth in darkness, and then proceeding in a stepwise fashion to a place of balance. Okay, this is emotion. This is the sacred feminine principle of emotion. You have to care enough to begin the journey. You go higher. You're trying to reach a place of balance between these energies. And then you can get that key right there to unlock the stargate. Okay, to unlock, and that's accomplished through action. The male principle of putting your emotions and your thoughts into action. And that is how you get off of the base consciousness and to the stars. Powerful iconography, powerful symbology being used here if you know how to read it. Now, in a negative connotation, a dark builder, a dark mason, may want to look at this symbol in a perverted way. So here's a reversal of it. You see, yes, this is base consciousness and this is higher consciousness, but they'll look at this symbol and say, well, the latter is tilted across toward the left, toward the sun only, and away from the feminine pillar, away from the moon. And our task is to imbalance consciousness toward the male principle only, or the left brain only. Because that's what gives birth to a dominator, to one who is bent upon control, a sorcerer of sorts. So this is how a dark occultists would interpret this symbol. I'm God, my will be done. I will use my influence to take those in base consciousness and give them the dark light. Make them think that they're being initiated into something important. But what I'm really doing is imbalancing consciousness to the left brain. And that is what some people are doing with certain individuals who enter Blue Lodge degrees in rogue lodges of Freemasonry. And they're using that knowledge to create more mind-controlled dominators that will listen to them, follow their orders, and they're not really receiving the true light. They're receiving the dark light of male left brain imbalance. That is one way that dark manipulators will see a very powerful, positive, connotative symbol and pervert it and turn it into something completely negative. And here is how that process is used. We see this extremely subversively when it comes to the iconography that is used on police uniforms. Particularly, here's the floor of the house representing base consciousness, the pawn, the checkered man, who cannot understand the difference between light and dark. He doesn't really understand what makes the principles of right and wrong function the way that they do. Conscience isn't born in an individual that simply follows orders. Anyone of true conscience would always ask the question, why, before carrying out any action or order given to them by anyone. And we see this, if we look at the symbol of the Fraternal Order of Police having a Masonic third-degree handshake and the all-seeing eye of Freemasonry there, and the three other corners of the pentagram representing the three blue lodge degrees. We also see here the three pillars, and now they're in their proper orientation with the checkerboard floor in between them, with the dual pillars being here and the one pillar being unified at the top. And in that orientation, we see that it forms an inverted pentagram as opposed to a right side up one. Just as it is here in the Victoria Police's logo, clearly an inverted five-pointed star, and it is placed along with the checkered floor right around the Temple of Solomon, and then directly on top of the prefrontal neocortex, the third eye. The inverted pentagram, which we already talked about as an extremely subversive symbol representing the destruction of spirit and the burial of spirit into the ground beneath the material world. And here we see the double square, another symbol of base consciousness representing the hypercube, which I'll get into, on the third eye on a English police's headdress. So, and there again, the checkerboard floor of the house wrapped around the Temple of Solomon. The temple, the sun and the moon, the left and the right brain. And that's what the symbol actually represents. The Masonic tracing board represents in Freemasonry the Temple of Solomon, the temple within man. It is a representation of the brain, the temple within man, the Temple of Solomon, the brain complex. So that is how it is used. And here is a 33rd degree Freemason who I do not consider to be a negative or evil person. I think he understood a lot about what Freemasonry was and how it was used and what its true purpose is. But he did talk about some of how the negative aspects of Freemasonry are used. This is Manly P. Hall. He said that Masonry conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages of the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve to be misled, to conceal the truth which it calls light from them, and to draw it away from them. He's saying that those who are really not in the know, that often would pervert the ideas and the knowledge, are deliberately misled away from this knowledge so as not to let it fall into the wrong hands. I often think that as well, in Freemasonry, it is being done deliberately to try to create people those who really are in the knowledge of how consciousness works, can manipulate for their own gain and get them to do what they want, because they're dangling a carrot, so to speak, before them and saying, I have the higher level knowledge if you'll do what I tell you, and then I'll let you have it. When in fact they're just being led like I said, like a donkey with a carrot at the end of the stick. Manly P. Hall said that the blue degrees are but the outer court of the portico of the temple, the porch of the Temple of Solomon, hence the term porch masons. Part of the symbols are displayed to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but it is intended that he shall imagine that he understands them. Their true explication is reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry, one of the highest level Freemasons in Masonic tradition, telling you right out in the open what the Blue Lodge degrees are for. And of course, the Fraternal Order of Police is Blue Lodge degrees of Masonry. So that's Masonic symbology and some variants of how it is used. The next, I'm going to talk about talismanic symbology and how it is used on our money. So this will be a very big part of this part of the lecture. This symbol is one of the most important symbols in all symbology. It is the most prominent symbol on our $1 bill. It is one of the most viewed symbols on earth. And very few people understand what it really means. I'm going to break it completely down from top to bottom and go through each element and attempt to explain it as fully and as clearly as possible. This is the symbol of all the mystery traditions. Okay? Very simply, it is the symbol of all occultism. Of course, it is Egyptian in its thematic representation and its symbolic representation. It is Egyptian, and there is a reason for that. We see the elements of the symbol being the words Anuit Coeptus at the top. Then we have a pyramid with its capstone missing. The capstone is cut off, so it is an incomplete pyramid. Atop the pyramid, as a two-dimensional slit in the sky, it could be seen, a two-dimensional opening or a rift in the sky. From behind that, we see an eye, and that eye is bathed in light. The pyramid is comprised of 13 courses of brick, the bottom of which has a date inscribed on it in Roman numerals, 9 Roman numerals. There is then a sash with the words Novus Ordo Seclorum written on it at the bottom. So we have to understand each element. Each element is here not by accident, it is there by design, and the makers of this sigil, because that's what this is. This is a sigil, which is comprised of many symbols. Put nothing on it by accident, and everything has a meaning in this. So let's start to break down the symbols one at a time. Anuit Coeptus is Latin. It means, Anuit means to favor or to look favorably upon. Coeptus is an enterprise, an undertaking, or a project, a work in progress, you could say. So Anuit Coeptus means he favors, could mean she favors, it favors, our project. He favors our work. He favors our work in progress. Okay? So, he favors our work is a good translation. Novus Ordo Seclorum is often hotly contested as to its meaning. Novus means new, Ordo means order or way, and Seclorum is the debated word. So I go to a Latin dictionary and I look up the word saeclorum, S-A-E-C-O-L-O-R-U-M. This is because people will say saeclorum means of the ages. So I'm looking up the word saeclorum, and that means age, generation, people born at a time, race, present time, or age, century. So if this phrase said the new order of the ages, we should see an A in between that S and E there. It would say novus ordo saeclorum, but it says seclorum. So clearly that's not the definition. Many people will say that that's what it means. It does not mean of the ages. Okay? The word seclorum is put into a Latin dictionary, and then you see it is a word modification, a truncation. CL is derived from CUL. So an internal CL might be rendered by CUL, thus giving us seculorum. And seculum, seculi, is a noun that means world, universe, secular, temporal, earthly, or worldly affairs, cares, or temptation. So, clearly, I think this can be solved and agreed upon once and for all, so we don't have to hear this incorrect, connotatively incorrect translation, the new order of the ages. This phrase clearly says New World Order. And that's it. That's what it says. Let's lay this to rest once and for all. Okay? So, he favors our work, the New World Order. And you have an eye in the triangle looking out from another dimension of space into our realm. The light is pouring through the scene from that realm, and a pyramid is being built. So, he favors our work, the New World Order. Who favors the work? What is the work? And what is the New World Order? So, clearly, this is the being that favors the work. This project is the work that's being done. Okay, this is the incomplete project. This is the date that the project could be begun or finished, depending on how we look at the seal. So, we have to understand a little bit about Egyptian cosmology and the main solar god, the solar disk, which we looked at as Horus, as Ra. Set is the dark incarnation of it. Really, all of these principles could be encapsulated as one solar god known as Aten, or Aton. Depending on the spelling, it could be spelled A-T-O-N or A-T-E-N. So, Akhenaten of 18th dynasty Egypt was actually named after this. He's a pharaoh of 18th dynasty. He brought in the concept into Egyptian cosmology of a one God that is the overarching ruling aspect of everything, known as the Aten. And he named himself after this god. Akhenaten means the spirit of the Aten, the solar god. So that is the being here, the Aten. Now that could mean a couple of things depending on how we look at this symbol. But let's just let it be seen as it is the solar principle, the solar god, the god of light, the bringer of light. So it could be also seen as the word Lucifer. Lucifer comes from two Latin words, lux meaning light, and fere meaning to bear or to bring or to carry. So it is the bringer, the carrier of light. Now, this could mean two different things. We have to understand that Lucifer and the Aten are the same basic principle, the same symbolic principle, and they are essentially, they are a dual god. There is a light aspect of the sun god, the one that brings true light of awareness. And then there is the dark aspect of light. So one can be truly illuminated and really possess the light, really possess the knowledge, and then there is one who can be born into the dark light. Those who have knowledge of how things really work, but the way they're using it is for the ego. Being my will be done because I view myself as God and separate from everyone else, and I am out there to manipulate and rule them. So either way you look at that symbol there, it is the Aten or Lucifer. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at that symbolically as positive or negative, and I will go over both interpretations, both the positive and negative. However, it can in both aspects, this entity could be seen as Aten or Lucifer. Keep that in mind. If you take the compass and square symbol and place the apex at the top of this symbol and the base at the same base level where the pyramid meets the ground, you're going to see a very interesting thing emerge. If we just trace the 5 points of the compasses and squares, the 2 compasses, the 2 edges of the square, and then the middle part that both share, the line of symmetry between them. So we go down the compass edges, and we see that the compass points point to 2 letters. The 2 end letters of this sash. Okay? N and M. N from Novus, M in Seclorum. Then we go up the place where the square is used to measure from, the inside edge of the square. And we see that also points to 2 letters, and they are also both on the opposite edge of this phrase, Anuit Coeptus. So we have the A in Anuit and the S in Coeptus. And now we come down the horizontal axis of symmetry. And we see it reaches 1 letter that is exactly in the middle of this sash, the O from Urdu. These 5 letters, if rearranged, are an anagram for the word Mason, M-A-S-O-N. And this is the symbol of all masonry. It is the symbol of all builders. And who are the builders? We all are the builders. We are all collectively on this planet the co-creators of our collective experience. Whether we are doing that creation unconsciously or consciously creating our experience, we are the builders of this world. And this is what we've built it into, what we currently have right now. So, who are the builders? We are the builders. But there's 2 different types of masons. See, there are masons that build with stone. They build the pyramid upward. They're building with stone. If you connect these 5 symbols as they are connotatively used in this seal, they form an inverted, skewed pentagram. And an inverted, skewed pentagram, if you look into dark occultic symbology, is always used as a symbol of pacts. It's a symbol of pacts, of promises made, to be something to be fulfilled, to be delivered upon completion of something else. So again, we saw that these 4 arms represent the material world, depicted as the upward pointing pyramid, the brick, the physical object, and they are crushing the spirit, the 5th element, into the ground, burying it under the weight of the pyramid. See, the dark builders, the dark masons, those who are building toward a world of male domination, the blade. See, they're building with bricks The bricks are people who are trapped in physical, five-sense reality and left-brain prisonhood. They are those who cannot change. They have one form, and it's hardened. A brick was once malleable clay that could be shaped, molded, take different forms. It flows easily. Change comes easily to it. But when it is baked in the left brain, solar, male dominator consciousness, it becomes hard and immobile and immovable. It becomes a brick. And that's what the male dominator world is being built with. The bricks baked into one form, the unit form. Those in unit form cannot see what is, not see. They cannot see. They are not sees. See? They are baked into one form, the brick. Okay? And they're being used as elements to build the blade world. And the blade world will be ruled by those who are in the light. They are the blade, the male dominator sorcerers. They have the light, but everyone else is in ignorance. And when you complete this structure, the light goes out from the scene. See, they're building the blade. If you complete this structure in brick, they have all the light, and the entire world is bathed in darkness. That in that symbol, the Aten or Lucifer represents the sorcerer, and he is completely trapped in ego. The ego-bound consciousness. It's the I in the triangle. I am God, the sorcerer says to the world. And I will make everyone in this world and the entire world in my own image and likeness. But I will have all the light, and the light will be blocked out to those in ignorance and in one form. And the male dominator world will be born into existence, and it will bathe the world forever in darkness. That's the negative connotation of this symbol. See, you'll notice it's the blade without the chalice. See, these other 3 points make the chalice, but it's gone. It's ghosted. Just like it's been ghosted through human sacrifice, through the cremation of care. Right? It's been ghosted through the removal of the sacred feminine from the Trinity, and through not caring about what goes on in the world. The sacred feminine is removed. It's ghosted. But the male principle is embodied in stone. And that's the project, that the New World Order project that the Dark Masons, the builders with brick, are building into manifestation. Now, there is a light side of this symbol. Again, he favors our project, the New World Order. If the true God of creation, the true bringer of light, the awakened neocortex, the prefrontal cortex, the opening of the third eye, the stone the builders rejected, the Christ consciousness, so to speak, the true bringer of light, right? The true aspect of Aten, the solar mind, right? If we, as the other kind of Mason, are trying to do the work that he favors, the true bringer of light, the true God of creation, and create the positive New World Order, our job as the builders of this project is to remove the brick from the top down, a little at a time, from those who we can help to work, smaller groups, gradually removing and helping people to change in larger and larger and larger groups. And if that pyramid is raised to the ground, is removed from the scene. There's nothing to block out that light of creation. And it comes down and joins with the earth. So the earth is not bathed in darkness of the male dominator blade world. Instead, it's bathed in light because the bricks are gone. Those who cannot change are gone. They've made the change, the metamorphosis, the transfiguration, the transformation in consciousness. And they've been raised to a higher level of awareness. So that's the opposite, the positive New World Order. Masons often tear stone down. And the light mason, the light builder, the light worker, wants to tear the stone down so the light comes down and join up with the earth to create the positive New World Order. And in that aspect, this is a powerful, magnificent symbol of the true mystery traditions. The object is to remove that pyramid of male domination and bring the light down to the earth. So we see that this is the symbol of Solomon encoded into it. The male aspect, here's the the yang, light aspect of consciousness, combined with the feminine, yin, dark aspect of consciousness to create the seal of Solomon. As above, so below. The Hermetic principle encoded into the seal of Solomon. See, depicted there. But it is the body unified with the spirit within the temple of man, the mind, the sun and the moon, the left and the right brain, to create the stone, the philosopher's stone, the opening of the third eye, the pineal gland, known as the stone the builders rejected. Because the dark builders reject that light of awareness and consciousness, and they are trying to block it out by completing that pyramid in stone. So that is my analysis of that symbol, and it's amazing when you get into it and really study it for yourself and really go deep into the symbology. And it gets even better when you start to look at that date on the bottom of the pyramid, because that date is MDCCLXXVI in Roman numerals, and that totals 1776. And here's how it breaks down. This is a chart of the letters and their corresponding numerical values. So if you just do the math, M is 1000, D is 500, C is 100, you have it twice there, so you're up to 1700. L is 50, that's 1750. X is 10, which you have twice, so that's 1770. V is 5, that's 1775. And I is 1, 1776. So what we're going to do now is something called gematria. It is Kabbalistic numerology. It's an occultic form of numerology, and it's very simple. It is simple addition or counting of these numbers. And we can combine them in different ways depending on which numerals we add together. And we understand that all of the added values are identical, and they mean the same thing in occultic numerology. So 1776 is the number that we get when we add these Roman numeral values together. And what we are going to do in this example is we're just going to take the 1 and add it to the 6 and leave these two 7s. So we get 777. And anyone familiar with Judaism or Kabbalah may know that that is a symbol of God. It's a number that represents the Trinity of consciousness in its perfect form. The 777 is the aspect of the divine in man. It is thought, emotion, and action, the three aspects of our consciousness, having reached the place of the gods, the 7 entities of the skies, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The 7 gods that can be seen with the ancient world. A representation of the 7 chakras of energy in the body. So 7 is a symbol of completion, perfection, and God. It tripled is a representation of God. So if we add the 3 7s together, it totals 21. And 2 plus 1, this is the parents and the child, the father and mother, the creator God and the sacred feminine, and the divine child. And then that totals 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. So all of these values can be seen as identical, or they mean the same thing. They are numbers that represent God, or completion, perfection. The divine has been awakened and realized. So, they can be used interchangeably in systems of occultism. And again, 3 being a number of unity, of unification of thought, emotion, and action, the triune being, the 3-in-1 God, right? The Trinity. So, what I'm going to do in this study of gematria is I'm going to take these letters, because gematria is a combination of geometry and mathematics. Geometry, earth, the measure of things, the measure of the earth, the mother, right? And matria, mathematics, the mother science, after Ma'at from Egypt, the mother goddess. So gematria is a combination of geometry and mathematics. So we have all the elements in place. We have the math aspect is covered by the Roman numerals that represent value or mathematics, and we have the shape that's given by the triangle shape or the pyramid shape. So we're just going to combine the two by taking, we have 9 letters, and we're given a shape that has three vertices. So we're just going to duplicate the shape 3 times, and we're going to place the letters at the vertices of the shape. So we'll start with M and put it at the top of the first triangle, and then D, C at the base, and then repeat it 3 times. M, D, C, C, L, X, X, V, I. And now we're going to substitute the numerical values for the Roman numerals. So we get this. We get 1,000, 500, 100. 100, 50, 10. 10, 5, 1. So you see a pattern emerge there. At the top of the pyramid, in every example, we see a clear pattern. 1,110. Now, in mathematics, those are known as powers of 10, or powers of 10, at 10, powers of at 10, at the top of the pyramid. Because at 10, no matter how you look at it, is at the top of the pyramid. This is a play on words that works out in the English language, and it is not an accident. These are perfect numbers of base 10 numerology, base 10 mathematics. And the powers of a 10, the powers of at 10, are indeed at the top of the pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, we have 500, 100, 50, 10, 5, and 1. If we add those for each base, we have 600 at the base here and 1,000 at the top. 60 at the base here, 100 at the top. 6 at the base here, and 10 at the top. We can then simply remove all the zeros, because zeros don't add to anything in gematria. So they can be removed. So we see that it simply boils down to this. 1's at the top, 6's at the bottom. And now we can combine them into one pyramid. And you have at the top 1, 1, 1, where the 3 pillars, the 3 aspects of consciousness, thought, emotion, and action, the 3 pillars of Freemasonry. At the bottom, 666. 666, the number of beast or base consciousness. And noticing that 3 correlates to 777, because if you add 777, you get 21. If you add 2 plus 1, you get 3. So 777 and 3 are identical. So you could simply substitute 777 for anything that totals 3, like 1 plus 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, so we could simply put 777 up there and substitute for 111. They're identical because they both add to 3. So we have God at the top, the light, the beast or base consciousness of illusion and identification with the physical world at the bottom of the pyramid, captured in stone, in one form that cannot change. Illusion, ego identification. So, if now we reduce them again. So we add 7 plus 7 plus 7, we get 21. We add 6 plus 6 plus 6, we get 18. And this is what is meant by counting the number of the beast. That's what we're in the process of doing. It's a prescription for gematria given in the book of Revelation in the Bible. We add 21, and of course, as we saw, that totals 3, the number of God, and 18, 1 plus 8 totals 9, the number of ego and illusion. Why is 9 the number of ego and illusion? Well, here's why. The number 9 has very significant mathematical properties, and they are shown to us in addition to the number 9 and in multiplication of the number 9. So this side of the table is an addition table, this side of the table is a multiplication table. 9 plus 1 is 10. 1 plus 0 reduces to 1. We're simply adding the final result, the digits of the final result together. So look, we're back at where we started adding to 9. 1. So adding the 9 was like adding 0. Okay? 9 plus 2 is 11. 1 plus 1 reduces to 2. It adds to 2. So we're back to 2. So again, adding the 9 was like adding the 0. You do this with any number. 9 plus any number gets you back to the same number once the result is added together, or what is called in gematria reduction. You're reducing a 2-digit or 3-digit or 4-digit value down to one number. You will ultimately come back to the same value that you started with, because to add 9 is to add illusion, or to add ego, or to add base consciousness. And when you add the beast, when you add base consciousness, you can never affect any change in value. You bring no value to the equation. You are adding 0. You are adding nothing. You are adding illusion. Now, the multiplication of 9 is a different result. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 2, 18. Add the 1 and the 8, you get 9. 9 times 3, 27. Add 2 plus 7, you get 9. 9 times any number, no matter what it is. You add the resultant digits, you will come back to 9. So what this is saying symbolically is multiplying base consciousness only gets you more base consciousness. You can never create anything new with ego and illusion and base consciousness. So this is why 9 is the number of illusion and base consciousness, and as such, it is synonymous with 666, or the number of the beast. One thing I should mention is that the date 1776 is simultaneously the year that the Declaration of Independence was signed in the United States, and it is a document declaring human sovereignty, and that our rights come from our Creator, whatever we happen to envisage that Creator or that force as, and not from man. But it also is the date of the birth of the Bavarian Illuminati order, and that happened on May 1st, 1776, which is a Luciferian dark occultic Sabbath known as Walpurgisnacht. May 1st, May Day of 1776 is when the official Bavarian Illuminati, the Order of the Illuminated, came into being. So there's a dualism even inherent in that date. You can look at the dark New World Order building upward from 1776 in earnest, from the time when this dark occultic order came into manifestation, and the object of the light New World Order to bring the light down by removing the bricks and getting back to the understanding of personal sovereignty as encoded in the Declaration of Independence. When we look at it, we see that these two numbers, 777 representing God or completion or perfection, and 666 representing illusion or base consciousness, they total 9 and 3, and that brings us to the occultic number 93. To go from the illusion to the real, to go from the illusion to the true source of power, to go from base consciousness to divine consciousness or compassion. And that is the process of going from the 9 to the 3, because the 9 drops away, it's illusion. 9 plus 3 is 12. 1 plus 2 goes back to 3. So the 9 falls away, being illusion. To go from the 9 to the 3, and this is a number that represents willpower. We make this journey by an act of personal will, and it is an act of love. Love and will, we will see later, are identical forces. Keep the number 93 in mind. The next way that symbolism is used subversively is in architecture. So this is the pyramid outside of the Louvre, the art museum in Paris, and it is a symbol of a pyramid, upward pointing, male pyramid, and it is comprised of exactly 666 panes of glass. So again, the base consciousness is encoded into the shape, and you see that the pyramid forms slightly off of a right angle, almost an exact right angle at the top, at its apex. Here we see the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, and we see from overhead, this arc is a solar symbol. You could see this as a point of male energy, these 12 streets being the 12 houses of the zodiac, all converging on the Arc de Triomphe with the rays of the sun around it. Could look at this as the unification of the two pillars, the arch, the point in the middle where the two become one, and they join together the male and the female principles. We see the masculine principle encoded in the Eiffel Tower. It is in 3 levels, just like the 3 degrees of masonry. You have the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason, the 3 levels of the Eiffel Tower. It is illuminated at light, and it is a phallic symbol. The illuminated pyramid at the Louvre. At the base of the Louvre, underneath, if you go underneath this pyramid, the Hermetic principle is encoded by a downward pointing pyramid over top of an upward pointing one, where spirit and matter joining together, as above, so below. Here we see St. Peter's Square, the Vatican, and we see the sun god, the cross of the zodiac and the great cross of the galaxy at St. Peter's Square. And we have the phallic symbol of Osiris, the obelisk in the middle. Osiris being a sun god in Egyptian cosmology. The pentagram in the pentagon being the central part of a inverted pentagram encoded into Washington, D.C., the heart of the inverted pentagram. The Pentagon being the center of defense intelligence for the United States, where war is planned, human sacrifice. We see from overhead in Washington, D.C., this right here is the White House. and then north of the White House, we see an inverted, skewed pentagram with one broken arm. Now, this is a very clear example of what is known as the pentagram of Pax in dark occultism. The pentagram of Pax is inverted because it is satanic, or it is thrusting the spirit downward. It is often skewed, representing that which is really out of alignment or proportion. So it is usually skewed in one form or another, either stretched or squashed. In this case, it is kind of squashed downward. And we also have a broken arm. And a broken arm in a pentagram represents a pact that has not yet been fully completed or fulfilled. So that which is promised has not yet been delivered because a work is still in progress. And I think we can understand the meaning of that broken arm by understanding what the pentagram of Pax represents. So it is not that they simply weren't able to complete that in some way. It is intentionally left broken. And this is one of the arguments against it actually being an occult symbol. Well, if there was occult leaders that made it, could they not have completed the last arm? They did not want to complete the last arm. It is intentionally made to be a pentagram of Pax, and that arm is left broken for a very specific occult reason. The phallic symbol of Osiris, encoded as the Washington Monument, a male symbol of phallic energy. It's in direct alignment with the symbol of the feminine energy, which is Congress. Congress being another word for sexual union. Congress. And the Congress building is the feminine principle. It's the dome of the feminine breast with the goddess statue of Columbia, or freedom, atop the dome, representing the feminine energy, and it is reflected in the water. The water being the principle of the moon goddess, the goddess of the water. The moon's light is reflected in the waters at night. So this also encodes in this reflecting pool the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as goes on in consciousness in the earth is reflected from the heavens, reflected in the external experience that we have. Other sexual symbols or phallic symbols seen in the layout of Washington, D.C. Here we have the Washington Monument. Here we have the Lincoln Memorial, which is a temple to the king. It's a reflection of Osiris the king, ruling as over the dominions of church and state, as we saw with Lincoln in his king's chamber, so to speak, holding the symbol of the fasci on both his left and right hand while seated upon his throne. And if we look at the street system that connects these two monuments, we just make a red. We can make a red outline of the street system around these two monuments and just fill in that area, and that is what it looks like. It is clearly a phallic symbol that is directing male energies encoded into the actual layout of the streets. People who believe in this system of geomancy, or tapping the energy of the earth through the types of lines that you place upon the earth, believe that this is directing male and female energies in certain ways and in certain proportions. So you have the feminine egg here next to the male phallus. This is called the ellipse on the south side of the White House. Again, Lincoln holding the fasci, the symbol of the fasci is the symbol of Roman centralized authority, encoded in the central axe around which is the bundle of rods or staffs. Now, east of that Washington Monument phallic symbol, we have a 13-level pyramid. Again, 13 on the back of the dollar bill, a solar number, the sun and the 12 houses of the zodiac, with the 14th level being the unification of the earth, air, water, and fire, culminating at the 14th level of the pyramid. 1 plus 4 is 5. So you have the earth, air, water, fire, and spirit unified at the top level of the pyramid. So here we have a 13-level pyramid with the capstone missing, and around the streets, around this is the Congress building, the Capitol building, around the streets, the path that creates the streets, going all the way around the Capitol building forms an image of an owl that sits atop this 13-level pyramid with the capstone cut off in the street system of Washington, D.C. If we trace the pyramid and then we trace 2 streets that shoot off from near the top of the pyramid, we see that there is a Freemasonic compass and square encoded into the layout of the streets as well. I'll take that off and do it one more time for you to see where those streets are. Here's a close-up of it. There's the owl. I'm removing it and then putting it back so you can clearly see the layout. This image was taken from Google Earth. And the owl, again, is that Babylonian deity that the Ammonites worshipped. They often worshipped it as Molech, and here it surrounds the sacred feminine. Again, it's the same principle as codified in the cremation of care ritual. The sacred feminine of conscience, of care, is being sacrificed to the Babylonian owl/bull god, Molech. It's in the belly of the beast. And overhead, above this complex here, where the owl is and the Capitol layout, we see the seal of Solomon encoded into the street plant, representing the feminine aspect that ends at the Capitol building, the feminine, okay, and then the male aspect ends at this place right here, which is known as Lincoln Park. And Lincoln Park is a resonator for Lincoln, who sits in the king's chamber, the male principle. So you have the queen or the goddesses building, and then you have Lincoln Park here, which is a representation of the male energy, and it's a symbolic correlation to Lincoln's name, who sits in the king's chamber at the Lincoln Memorial. This is the entire occult layout of Washington, D.C., and there's even more in this layout, which I don't have time to go into, but studying the occultic orientations of the layouts of the street systems of many cities is very interesting, and there's all kinds of symbology encoded into it. It could be a presentation in and of itself. The last symbol that I'm going to talk about in this symbology section is the hypercube. And this is one of the deepest symbols of all occultism, which very few people really delve into and get into the meaning of. The hypercube represents 4-dimensional space and time. The next level the next higher dimension from the 3-dimensional world that we inhabit. So you have a point that represents no dimension. You have a line that represents a 1 dimension, that you can go forward or backward. You have a plane. You extrude the line and you get a plane. Now you have a 2-dimensional object. Then you extrude the plane into a 3rd dimension and you get a cube. So that's what our 3-dimensional world is like. 3D. You have a single cube. You have length, width, and depth. But then if you extrude a cube, you take the cube and you pull it and you extrude it that way. You get what's called a hypercube. So this is a 4-dimensional object. It is derived by unfolding a cube into all of the dimensions of each one of the planes of the cube. And you get this object. When you look at the hypercube ideology, it is representative of the mind existing inside the construct of matter. So you have matter being the outer part of the cube, and then mind is the inner part of the cube. Okay, so this correlates to this level of body, mind, spirit levels of consciousness that we saw in part 1. And we see that the hypercube is derived when we combine matter, represented by the red square, and spirit, represented by the green square. We see that that is everything that is. That is the universe, or the world of matter, the world of spirit, coming into manifestation as matter to experience itself subjectively. And that is the large cube that is derived from that union. See, that's the large cube. The unification of body or matter and spirit is the large cube. And then the inner cube is the mind. That is where body and spirit combine. They merge in the realm of mind. So that's the inner part of the cube. So if we put the outer cube over top of the inner cube, we see that the hypercube is actually a cube within a cube. And again, this part of the cube in the center is the experience of mind. This part of the cube in the outside is the physical world of manifestation that the spirit comes down and inhabits to create that which can have experiences. This is the two-dimensional projection of this four-dimensional object, a cube rotated around in every plane that it can be rotated in. It's a complex, heady idea. If you look on the internet for some graphic depictions or animations of a hypercube, you can get a clearer idea of what it is in your mind. But the idea is that to look at the cube in a dark way, the hypercube in a dark way, means that you are seeing the physical world as a prison. And that's the large box. The big box on the outside is the physical world that imprisons spirit. See, this is a negative worldview that says all the physical world is really a prison. And it's a horrible thing, a horrible place. It's not a construct for experience of spirit to descend into physical form so that it may come to know itself more fully. It's a horrible thing that is, a prison. And that's the way that a dark occultist looks at the dark hypercube and the hypercube symbology. The inside of the cube is the mind that is held captive within the body. So you have the prison of mind being held in the larger prison of the physical world of matter. And this is its two-dimensional projection, which looks like an octagon. So this is a symbol of mind control. The octagon is a symbol of base consciousness. It is the symbol of the controlled mind, the small cube, being held in the large cube, the prison of matter. So it's a dark worldview concept that represents the double prison. The prison of mind held in the cage of matter. And what do we see the hypercube or the octagon used to represent? We see it as a male dominator sport that involves the potential of destroying the brain. Extremely violent male dominator sports. Cage fighting, where the brain isn't respected. Go into a cage and smash your opponent into unconsciousness and do all kinds of damage to the brain. The octagonal hat, the 8-cornered hat that law enforcement officers wear. It's another total assault on the consciousness of people who take the jobs as enforcers or controllers. They're being told symbolically, your consciousness is of the hypercube. It's of the octagon. The octagon is placed on the crown chakra, just like the square we saw in the other example. The double square on the English police's hat, right here on the forehead, on the third eye. Again, the double square is representative of the octagon, the two squares being combined in an 8-sided shape. If you complete the corners, you get the octagon if you connect the corners. But the 8-cornered hat is the octagon being worn on top of the crown chakra as another occultic insult, an insult in symbolism to the mind-controlled controllers, the controllers who they themselves are under deep forms of mind control to do a job that is a deeper suppression of their spirit and others. Because the hypercube is seen in one more place, and it is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. It is on every metropolitan street corner, the stop sign. Encoded in red, and it has the word stop written on it, and this is saying to the consciousness, stop. Stop the journey. Stop your movement. Stop the progression of spirit. Just stop and stay in the double prison. Stay in the hypercube. The prison of mind encoded and captured in the prison of matter. The hypercube is one of the more difficult symbols to really grasp the deep connotative understanding of the symbolism of it. But once you understand it, you will see it in many places, and it is definitely used as a subversive symbol in most instances, particularly in cage fighting, in the uniform and emblems of controllers, particularly the 8-cornered hat of police, and most ubiquitously in the stop sign that we see all over Western culture.